Hello and welcome to tonight's AMA with Nicolai Josuttis. So tonight we're going to have a conversation about, everything which Nico does. And as I already said, post your questions into the chat or into the Q&A bar, because we're probably going to have some debates in the chat also. Nico can share his screen if, there are some code examples you want to share, like, for example, a Godbolt link. You can put that into the chat, but Nico maybe also has like an editor open or something, or prepared some code, which we can use as an example of things he's currently thinking about. And let's get started with a quick introduction from Nico himself. Who is Nicolai Josuttis?
Okay, thank you, Jens. Partially, it's all my fault. I'm involved in C++ for 30 years now. I was in the room when we finished C++ 98. And so afterwards, I thought, that's it. But you never can give up C++ once you start with that. So as you know, I've written a couple of books about that to explain things. We standardize. It got more and more. I had to do some updates, and then I came back with C++ 11, trying to understand move semantics and perfect forwarding. And that was the beginning of writing a couple of new books about move semantics, and then C++ 17. C++ 20 book is almost done. So to some extent, I don't know exactly how that happened. I have written a couple of books, which are, I think, pretty good known. And they all try to explain what we standardize. Maybe that's a problem in itself. And so that's my job. It seems that's my life now, my professional life, to explain C++. And which means point out the good and the bad things. Yes, there are bad things. There are a lot of good things. Both. That's it.
Okay. Can you really quickly check your mix setup if the correct microphone is used? You don't sound as clear as you did in the lounge, just to make sure.
This looks, wait a minute. So even just a moment ago, I had a drop. So is it better now?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Let's give that a try. Okay, so
Good.
we have our first question from Daniela. We are famous for standardizing things on the fly with a spectacular success rate. What would you recommend to improve things?
How much sarcasm is in this question, Daniela? Well, the topic behind that is we're standardizing C++, and the idea of standardization is to standardize existing practice. So there's something everybody uses, but it might look different from platform to platform a little bit. Now let's make it portable and reusable and make it guaranteed to work and to be available on each and every platform. I have no idea about the percentage there, but maybe half of what we standardize is existing practice. And a lot of things are done on the fly. I mean, to some extent, the standard template library in 1998, which introduced iterators, begin and end, containers, and algorithms, so data structures and algorithms for the mass, was established, but not really used in the community. But a lot of people worked on that for years. So, and it was a success story, as we all know. We think that. C++ wouldn't be that successful without the standard template library. So that's a good example. We have examples where things went bad or not so well as they could be. Maybe the problem is not that we cannot or should not standardize existing practice, not only existing practice or only existing practice. Maybe the problem is that the moment we have it standardized and available in compilers, compiler vendors reject to break backward compatibility. So maybe we need a mode where we say we have a good idea, but here's half a year where we don't guarantee backward compatibility for something new. That would probably help, because we have made tremendous mistakes when we standardized C++ and didn't think deeply into the different tools. We have problems with initializer lists. We have problems with std thread. We had problems with atomics. We have problems with ranges and views. We have problems with modules. We have problems, well, enough. So it would really be great if we could just say, yeah, it's nice that we have that, but please, Microsoft, Clang, GCC, don't come with any argument that you cannot change that. We have to change that because that's not consistent. It turns out to be a design mistake. And maybe after half a year, 1 year, or with the next C++ release, it should really be stable. Yeah, maybe that's a point.
Yeah. So GP Miller asks, did I correctly gather that C++ standardization meetings are now closed to the public? Do you have any recommendations on how to get involved in standardization nowadays? What is the easiest entry point?
I'm not sure I'm the right one to ask that question. I was very astonished about what I read and saw about that we close now something we had open for 30 years. And I still don't understand exactly what is allowed, what is not allowed, etc. I think it was part of the success story of C++ that everybody could join, so everybody could improve what we standardized before it was standardized. You know, I have some experience. I have some experience with C++ standardization. There were times I was not allowed to represent Germany. There was half a year I was representing UK. Just because of that. It's always about games and marketing. So we also have heard that some people give up and say, yeah, that's ISO, so we have to take the rules. I never, in my age, I never accept anymore that something is written in stone. So shout out loud, go to your company and say, hey, ISO, that's not okay what you do. It's counterproductive. And we have to do that. I still don't understand the rules exactly, what is possible and what not. If I can improve the situation, I definitely would like to do. I'm also frustrated. But I don't know the details. That's a problem.
Yeah, as far as I understand, it's like that C++ always existed in some kind of a gray zone for ISO, and that we got a bit too much attention and overreaching maybe from our position a bit and making things more difficult. But on the other hand, our community is already adopting, and we are having various foundations open up to onboard people and maybe to take parts of standardization of ISO and like have more like an umbrella standardization and then later put that into ISO process. But it's what we're going to do. But you mentioned that you were not allowed to represent Germany. What's that story about?
Because I didn't pay. I didn't want to pay. So as somebody representing with voting rights, or even without formally, you have to pay, or you have to be in a university or be a student there. I was not, and I was not willing to pay. So, yeah, I mean, that was 30 years ago, where I also had problems to pay for it. It was expensive enough for me to go to the meetings and pay it for myself.
Yeah, I believe that.
The problem is we already have a huge problem in C++. It's standardized by experts. These are great experts. The problem is sometimes they have no clue about real problems of the average programmer. And they know too much. They don't see how tricky things are. They standardize. And it would be so helpful to have more application programmers, even beginners there. And with that policy, of course, we make it even more expertise. We make it even a more special audience. And we make the standard worse and worse with that, because the standard is getting worse a lot. Yeah. I think I'm really honestly now thinking about whether we are beyond the point where we should still deal with C++. Yeah, we will still have it, but it's about to die. We are in the last third of the age of C++, I think, at least from usability and teachability. It's no longer teachable. That's all, and there's no surprise that we currently see a couple of movements thinking about coming up with something better. Not that we have something better, but revolution is starting, I think.
Yeah, so it's like, the funny thing is, like, my own conference started. The very first thing we did is put on stage someone who was the head of the German delegation, Peter back then, and talk about that the funding for ISO was running out and that the German delegation would be discontinued in 2013 because ISO needed to have that funding or would close down the delegation. And we saved the German delegation that day. And things I did pick up the bill for many years. I'm not sure if they still do. I think they still do. But yeah, that's like when I'm like, yeah, it's like the next meeting face to face is on Hawaii. So that's probably like, a bit far off for many people. But you already had
nightmare. It's a nightmare to have a meeting in Hawaii. It's not fun. From Europe, you travel 24 hours one way.
Yeah.
Just to work. Well, but I can tell you, you have a lot of people who want to join you on that trip.
I can understand that there's a lot of folks which can go to Hawaii and then use this to go to Hawaii. And I've also heard that is basically also meant to accommodate the Asian members, because for them it's the easiest way to go to the US is to fly to Hawaii.
So that would be great. That would be good, of course.
And I wonder
we should not always concentrate on North America and Europe. Yeah, we do.
But yeah, we had a meetup in Cologne organized by yours truly. What was your experience with organizing that?
A meetup? You mean a standard committee meeting? Nice. Well, Cologne is nice. Compared to the US meeting places, it's cheap. Cologne is near to Frankfurt, and so everybody can fly to there. And the hotel was right downtown Cologne, and Cologne people love to have party and go out for eat, and the Rhine River was outside. So from what I hear is that attendees were very happy about that. And it was also from a financial perspective not such a big deal, because, well, 100 or 200 attendees in a hotel bring you some money. The only problem was trust. They didn't trust me. What is this guy coming and saying, hey, there will be 200 people coming? We talk about something like 100,000 euro or something, or dollars.
Well, they are very happy to give you 100 or 200 rooms as a contingent which you own.
Yeah, but they were getting nervous because they didn't know whether they really come. That was a problem. You know, yeah, it's how to deal with hotels.
Was it the problem of the hotel or your problem?
No, the hotel had a trust problem.
Okay. Yeah, I understand
so
that.
It all changed when more or less the meeting started. The hotel manager came to me. Oh, great! This is great, and you can come back each and every time.
Okay.
But they really were getting nervous because I have no company behind. It was just me.
Oh, yeah.
And the problem is they didn't tell me about that. They didn't tell me that they have mistrust. They just acted strange. And because if they would have done, I could have organized some background information or some whatsoever. So yeah. So that was the funny part. But at the end, it was not much work. Well, you have to know a little bit about how this works. Yeah, I would do it again. But with Corona, I thought, think about, I would have organized that. So I took some financial risk, and you have to organize that, and then we have Corona.
1 year later.
And I have to pay something like 30,000 euro or something. Or, well, we had interesting times when COVID and Corona came up. How do we negotiate with hotels, and who is fault and who has to pay what? You know that, Jens, with your conference. So looking back, I would not do it again with that risk, but maybe I do it again and say, hey, you have the experience. I don't guarantee anything. Trust me or don't trust me.
And you can get that.
Yeah, maybe. You never know.
Well, so there's a question. Do we have some kind of quality metrics around how many lines of code a C++ developer can write a day? Some people even start to think of 1 story point of development work a day minus, meaning 8 story points a sprint. What a wonderful world to live in.
Are you paid with fewer lines or with more lines?
Depends on your code.
How do you measure good code? I don't think anything of this makes sense. So I'm 30 years now into software development, and every trial to make sure that code becomes better, driven by formalism, is a disaster. That's all. You have to change your process to make software development better. And then we have the rule that we know from research that the average speed of programmers is by a factor of 10 different. So some programmers are a factor of 10 more productive than others. So all you can do is establish some way to say, let's learn from each other, and both the expert from the beginner and the beginner from the expert. And I'm not a fan of anything like giving benefits about the speed of your code. What we have learned with agility is that at least we can estimate things, and maybe we have different estimations, and then we are happy if we are on time. That's all.
When you do trainings, do you get to see the code of your clients? Like, can you like what is the average code you like? How do you feel about this code you get to see maybe in your trainings from your clients?
I don't see code.
So you do most of your trainings and you're not a freelancer, you're not a consultancy for code quality.
Yeah, so of course I see code, but not that much anymore. It turned out that over the past 3 years or 4 years, and usually I had 50% project, 50% teaching or writing. That has changed. So I'm more or less doing now 100% teaching and writing, and the other 30% learning C++ and the new things. And then we have the problem. How do I teach that? So I'm one of the early adopters. So I see things earlier than others, or I try them out earlier than others. And I try them out very thoroughly, not just driven by a project, just I want to explain that. And if you explain something, you really dive deep into something. And then what usually happens is that we have trainings, and then they come and say, could you teach our beginners in 1 week with all issues of C++? Oh, okay. Could you teach C++ 20 in 1 day? Okay. Well, that's not possible. I mean, it is. You can always say, the question is, how deep do you dive into the details? But the usual thing is that we just have limited time. And with limited time, practical exercises are a problem. So what we usually do is we have slides, and then we program together, which is also nice. We learn from each other, and you have to manage that a little bit so that not always a thought leader of the group does everything. And that's the way we write code and learn from each other about code. But these examples are not very big because we have too much things to teach in C++. That's the problem. That's simply the problem. And no company understands and is willing to pay for, 8 weeks of training. So no way. I never heard that.
I know. Did you or did the tool turn off your webcam?
My webcam is on here.
I can't see it. Maybe it's from my side. Okay, let's continue the conversation with, so for someone beginning C++ for eventual entry into the job market, is there a recommended standard to begin with? Does it depend on the industry, systems, application? Are some industries into specific standards or locked into standards?
So probably what is meant, which C++ standard to begin with?
Yeah.
I would definitely do modern C++ right now, which is something between C++ 11 and 17. So I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 C++ standards now, I think. 11, 14, 17, 20, 23, 03, and 19. Now 7 already. And but we have only 3 really big differences. So we have the area of C++ 98 and 03, so the first C++ standard. Then we have modern C++, started with C++ 11 and 2 other versions. And now we have C++ 20, which is also a big revolution, will change everything. So I would concentrate on the middle one, on modern C++. And I don't think it depends on the industry.
Okay.
It's more depending on the project you are and the context. And there is, as I said, there's too much to learn. So be happy with the things you learn, and please beware that there are other things you don't know. And let's look at them later. I had a discussion with Bjarne Strastrup about that, and he said, well, maybe it doesn't matter how you learn C++, because there are very multiple paths. All you start with is with some knowledge, and then the knowledge gets broader and deeper over time. And nobody knows everything about C++, even not in the standard committee. So, and of course, solve real world problems. I mean, not just funny games and funny slides, just program. That's, I think, is the most important thing. So I would not say any specific standard or tool is recommended here.
I think that C++ 17 gives you a good basis, but it's like autos are still C++ 14. It depends so much on where you want to go with and which company hires you.
Well, we are currently merging AutoSAR with MISRA. So a new MISRA standard is coming out. And but that's a little bit tricky, because what is coming out there is a restricted C++ language and library, because we have some rules where we say stop, and you should not use it that way. So part of the problem is not only which features to use, part of the problem is which style guide to follow. And we have really different opinions about that.
So I just put on screen some statistics. So I started a job fair, and I give people the ability to select their skills, what they use. And through that data, if I scroll into here in the interesting part, I can, no, it doesn't work. It seems like it should. This is the skills from the last job fair. And you see that most candidates internationally are still like speaking C++ 11, 14, Linux, then comes 17, and modern C++. This seems to be like an object orientation. This seems to be what most candidates at the moment feel comfortable with telling their future employer, or as what they want to work with, or what they can right now do. And so that is, as a general thing, something you can go with. But when you're starting out today, when you want to build a career for yourself, I think C++ 20 will be really interesting. Once it's like an industry standard, but right now with Qt being on 17 and other frameworks also being on 17 for a while, it's probably 17 what you need to understand. And then if you find your employer, you will know what to learn. Because in the end, it's not, what you wish or what you would like to learn. It's like what is the actually work you do with C++.
So you think C++ 20 is usable?
Maybe. I know people working with it. And I have seen people actually also in this tool say that they use C++ 20 or that they,
It is. No question about that. It depends which part you use. But
Sure.
we have a revolution there in a couple of things. We are not mature, although the compiler vendors would like to be mature there.
That's
And we have no style guides about that. And people are still struggling. And part of that is that they don't understand C++20 now. That's my impression.
It's a new C++11. It's a new base standard, and nobody understands it at the moment.
Well, so. It's more. I think it's. I think it's bigger than C++11 in a sense that it has more dramatic consequences.
Yes, with modules and concepts, definitely. But it's kind of,
modules is not the big consequence. No, coroutines more. Ranges is huge. Ranges changes your complete programming model. Concepts. So these are, well, the last two are the big ones. And we learn how to use that now. And I think that's, it's too early. Well, but it's okay. It's good to know that. No question about that. But it's...
I kind of feel it's good to have a standard again, which is not like fully implemented when the release is to see that, we kind of,
But we never had that.
Well, it kind of felt like it was 14 and 17, it's 11 was the last standard where you had to wait for a few years until, like, you had a broad implementation across every compiler with Clang, Microsoft needing to catch up for a year. And now it's more like Clang catching up with Microsoft. The times have changed.
Yeah, but wait a minute. So so we have more or less complete support by Microsoft for C++20 now, and that's 2.5 years in the industry now. In GCC, important parts are missing, and Clang is way behind. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the current situation. So and yeah. So
years after the standard is released, so GCC is still, I think GCC is behind, and Clang is also not having everything. So,
but Clang lacks a lot. So Clang is not even core language complete, core feature complete, as far as I know. Yeah. So a lot of things simply don't work there yet from the language point of view. And then in GCC, my latest knowledge, I don't check it every time, is that chrono parts are missing, and then STD format. Oh, I would love to have STD format as soon as possible, and so that is unfortunately both missing. Yeah, and then we have the interesting situation that with modules, a few things are missing to make it portable. But that's an interesting question. The responsible people in the standard committee say, oh, it's up to the compilers. The compilers say, oh, it's up to you to tell us what to do. And yeah, not only implementation defined. I mean, honestly, I'm not able to write a portable module program right now. And even the simple, so hello world with modules, I'm not able to do that because, for example, I don't know any standard suffix I should take so that it easily compiles on the different platforms. Hey, that's not right for practical usage. That's something for experts on specific platforms. Okay, but we're coming with C++ 23 already. So that is implemented already. But I think to some extent we should concentrate a little bit more on our homework before we come up with something new. Making something new is cool. Doing your homework is not so cool, but important.
So what's your feeling about C++ 23?
It's great. It's a nightmare. And we made a couple of mistakes, I think.
So
I discussed that with a lot of people. They tell me, you have no clue what you're talking about. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I think we're really great stuff. So I think the general approach of modules is great. So what I see, I think I can understand why this helps me in practice. Coroutines is tricky, complex basics. So now we need more and experience. But as we see, the experience leads to a situation where this will need 1, 2, 3 more releases until we can really use as in standard scenarios with support of the library. Concepts, I think, is really good. So that's good, and that's good to use. Here we have lack of support of compilers. Not that they cannot do that, but you need a certain quality of error messages there. So if a compiler says this constraint is not met and doesn't even tell you which constraint it is, then we have a problem. And but they're working on that. No complaint. It takes some time. And the last thing is ranges and views. I think ranges and views is, I have my problem with that. I mean, we really see the problems with ranges and views that we have to be backward compatible. So ranges is fixing a lot of flaws of C++ in the standard library. So they provide a lot of new tools in std ranges or other namespaces, which are also available in an std. People don't know what to use. They are confused which namespace to use. And then I think at least regarding views, we made some design mistakes. Some people say it's not okay to say this is design mistake. They say that was a design decision and you might have done it otherwise. But I think std views is not a library for the ordinary programmer, for the mass. We will run into significant problems when we use that for non-experts. But from what it can solve and what it provides, it should be a library for the mass. And so I think we have made mistakes with our design decisions there. And yes, that's a matter of taste. We might come back to the problem that we standardize by experts, and these experts have no idea what they do with the programmers. But yes, everybody looking at the keynote at
right, that was my next question.
We'll learn more about that. I promise that.
Right. So what can you tell us about your keynote at my conference in 4 weeks?
Well, at best, it's bullshit. No. At worst, it's bullshit. At best, it will create a productive discussion. I'm at the end, of my birth of the C++ 20 book. So it's more or less complete now, and that means I have a pretty good understanding now of it, although a couple of people might doubt that. And I've seen things I like, I've seen things I don't like, and I name them. And Yeah, in my talk, in my keynote, I will concentrate on both the good things and really some significant flaws we have and how to deal with them in practice. And what else should I say? I think the keynote will not be boring. Let me say it that way. So
I remember your last keynote. That was
well,
anything else.
this will be different. Yeah. So last keynote the format was a little bit interesting. So this time I have to say something. I have to say something what I don't like, and I don't want to say I don't like it. I want to explain why and what I don't like. But I also don't want to destructively criticize C++20. I want to show how to make it better.
Okay.
And that is the plan. So a couple of things are under the hood. And if somebody has time here to look the next 4 weeks in some code and learning a few things about C++20 and trying to improve some idea and implementing something interesting, send me an email.
Okay. So we've touched on that, but we're already going in a different direction. And we had a question about it, so I just want to bring it up again. What is your opinion on like the new languages which came up this year and like CPP2, Carbon, Val, and also Rust, which is a different thing than the prior languages I mentioned. How do you see it? Do you have experience with those, and how do you see that? What's your opinion?
I don't have experience with those except that in each and every of my training, people ask me that. And I have more and more trainings where they say, oh, we should do it like in Rust. And tell me that everything is better there. There's something I learned in my life. And one thing is the best is not important. It's important that you, in your problem domain, choose whatever is appropriate. And a lot of things are important for that. And one thing we have, and that's for no doubt, we have a big community of C++. We have a big tool set of C++. We have years and many years of experience. And so C++ is a mature language. And all these alternatives are not. Some may be more mature than others, like Rust is probably more mature than Carbon, which I didn't even look at. But all I say is, yes, I think it's time to make some things better. And it would be very strange if we couldn't do something better. I don't know if you are aware how old C++ is. It's 50 years old. Because we are compatible to C, and the first C version, programming language C, came out in 1972. And we still have to deal with the fact how arrays and pointers behave, etc. So we can definitely do things now better. And we can do definitely things better than in C++. Our biggest problem is backward compatibility. Everybody's fed up with that. Everybody's fed up that we don't break in C++ existing code. The usual discussion is, because I have this discussion all the time, is, so what do you want me to break? And then everybody gives you a different answer. And they say, but this you have to keep backward compatible because we use that. So that's a problem of a mature language. And we don't want to run into the problem of Python, where moving from Python 2 to Python 3 took, I don't know, 10 years. Is it over now? No, probably not. So we have de facto, we have two Pythons. So maybe it's time to have another C++, and Carbon seems to be one approach, or other languages that do it better like Rust, maybe an approach. I didn't look at them in detail. All I say is my time is fulfilled by trying to understand C++. As somebody doing this for 30 years in the standard committee. And I really have a trouble to understand what we standardize and follow all the different things. I have the connections to Austin, and then I try to document that. That's all. So I cannot say there's something better. I'm pretty sure we can do better. I'm pretty sure there can be something better, but it's also about maturity, etc. So I'm interested and say, yes, good. And what I really don't like is when standard C++ people say, don't do anything with my baby. They really get angry if people don't like C++ anymore. I don't understand that. It's a tool. It's a tool. This tool is good enough for something, is not good enough for other things. And yes, it's an old tool. So we have problems, and the problems get bigger and bigger and bigger. So great if we have something better. Use it. Why not? We still have 4 million programmers that need our help. So great that we have new languages. There's nothing that replaces C++ now yet. There might be. And great, good. That's good.
But I mean, I just this week have the experience of upgrading my own code base to PHP 8, and my PHP level is kind of Stone Age. So my programs and the way I code with PHP is fairly low level. And I was surprised what kind of PHP code was running without making any problems in PHP 7. Like, you access an array index which doesn't exist, no problem. You call count on a non-array, it just passes through. And with PHP 8, there's a lot more type safety. And code now breaks silently when you access an array index which doesn't exist, instead of being like this kind of strange way that it's a kind of probably simulated or something. So I didn't read about it, by the way. I did some research on like what problems to expect when do that, but that's what my code now currently doesn't have. I'm kind of, most of it works, but it's like those 2% of lines in your code that broke and that you have to find and fix. Which kind of gets annoying and kind of gets you thinking, should I learn Python and should I try to rebuild all what I did with PHP in the last 3 or 4 years in Python, which would be doable, but also would mean to learn a complete new language. And the same problem has C++, and when you have a large code base. It's not that easy to move code bases.
But you cannot compare these languages, it's clear, yeah? I mean, if we try to let C++ become Java,
no, that's clear.
Or PHP or a script language, that's a different language. We have the reason why we have a lot of good reasons why C++ is that way. And compile time problems is better than runtime problems in many scenarios. And be careful with all these things. As I said, choose what is appropriate in your context and situation.
So we have a question about book publishing, and you are writing books and publishing them. So regarding book publishing, some books get a bit outdated as they are not edited at the same pace of standard publication. How is your experience with LeanPub?
Oh, these are two questions, or two implied questions. So first of all, I started with I started with a book that was. Do I have it here? No, too bad. So because it has the German title D. That's the German DIE C++, and then standard library. Do we have the German title there, Jens? Yeah, so like that. So now I came to my first meeting, so not without boost there. So I came to my first meeting, only the first line was visible. And Jana came along, didn't know me, and read Die C++. That was the beginning of a long relationship. So I have some history, yes. And the first one was in German. I had different publishers. I had different ways of writing. I had co-authors. I had without. I could say a lot about that. I'm pretty happy that I'm now able to self-publish my books, but of course I also have some power, and I'm well known, so that it's not so easy to make them knowledge, so that people are aware that these books exist. And so there was a time where I switched to LeanPub, and the funny thing, I still use my tools from 30 years ago with this LaTeX, with a couple of special macros, just for LeanPub, because LeanPub started with Markdown, and just for LeanPub, I wrote a converter from LaTeX to Markdown, because that was the easiest way for me to write that book. And it was interesting. I can in LeanPub publish PDF. So I create camera-ready PDF just for the other flavors, like ebook, like Kindle, or whatever we have there. They then use the generated Markdown for the other formats. And after me writing this tool, that was very helpful and useful. And I could easily switch to another language. And I have all my scripts. I have so many scripts that check, for example, that all the examples I use have the same code base as the as I tested with my compilers. And so in principle, the experience with LeanPub is very nice. I would say revenue is as if I would publish with a company. These days, a company makes better marketing, but takes more money. So that's roughly it. I like to work with them. I try to avoid Amazon, but I cannot avoid that. They are ruining the world, and I have a problem with monopolists, especially when they use their power. And but as you know, my books are printed on demand with Amazon. Well, the hardcover version is not. So, yeah, the experience with LeanPub is good. I would have to say a few things, but in principle, it's a good company. I like them.
So,
and the pace with the standard in my books, no way. 200 people are standardizing C++. I'm one. I hope I can follow. And the standard is now too big for one book. I started with a book about the standard library. That's no longer possible. No way. So I switched to this model where I said, well, maybe the best thing, each and every C++ version I write a book about, just the new things, and then from time to time something else. So the move semantics book, nobody describes move semantics in a proper way. At least I'm not aware of that. Well, yeah, of course, all parts of it, but the whole story, the whole concept of move semantics, all the traps, all the details, we didn't have a book like that. So I said, I have to write that. Next book was, I'm thinking about this initialization and overload resolution, but Bartok Philippek did that book. I didn't look at it yet. So another one wrote that. So that's good. So we need books that conceptually explain C++. You can't use CPP reference to learn C++. That's not possible. And then we need beginners books, but we need also the books that those people who know C++ already, they learn. And we have too much things, so I can only write one thing at a time. That's a problem.
Yep. I've heard Scott Myers in both ways. He was very happy with his new publisher in 2014 because he finally had found the one publisher which was better than all the others.
Which
And
was?
I don't want to name them. So a few years later, he said it's one of the reasons he quit writing. It's like he didn't want to go for self-publishing, and he didn't want to be the Scott Myers for the new standards because this was a thing that couldn't be existing and due to the Scott Myers book on the new standards would he could write that book today, but he decided to retire because it was just it's just so much new things and the combination of it, and nobody knows if Scott can give like in 2015 or 14 advice on something in C++11 which would still be true today. And he was like just saying, well, maybe it's smarter to retire for me on that and not put
So you tell me I should do that also? So I met Scott a couple of times. We talked about topics like that very deeply. I cannot say anything about that. So yeah, I know. And it's a little bit funny. I have the impression that Scott left the gap in the community of somebody bringing new things to the point. And so who has this role now? And maybe I can fill that up a little bit. But
I think Jason Turner has this role now with his YouTube videos.
With the videos, so with the new media.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't think that there's and I understood that Scott did retire. I understood that. It's basically, by the way, I knew that since 2014 after the conference, and I knew like a year before this was public that he was thinking about that. And but there is a question about POSIX RPs and bringing them to C++ and libraries. Do you have any suggestions to, what libraries to use, what codes to use, what to do, how to use POSIX from C++?
Well, at first, thanks for the question. Semaphores are in C++ 20. So we have adopted that, or at least in some way. I really would make sure and like to see that we don't look only at POSIX. If you look at the file system library, you see a couple of things that are using POSIX specific stuff. And that means that the file system library has some issues on Windows. And we really should look more broad, because de facto we have at least two major worlds. That is the Unix, Linux world and the PC and Microsoft world. And we should at least be able, if we write code, that it works on both, which is pretty tricky. I mean, especially in concurrency, they have different ideas about things like that. So yeah, semaphores are there. I think message queues, I'm not sure we have. I'm pretty sure they are discussed. I don't know about what is discussed right now there in these groups. Yeah, what else do we have? So Yeah, in principle, yes, adopt APIs and make them in a C++ fashion, not in a faked C fashion, as we have done in sometimes. Well, not really, but sometimes. But it takes time. I mean, we see that when we look at how long it takes to adopt a interprocessing library that deals with sockets, etc. And yeah, we are still working on it, and we still have problems to adopt it. So it's really tricky to make that portable, and
But
that's why it takes so long.
if you not think about the standard, if you think about the perspective of someone needing to use the message key, would you use POSIX, or do you like? I mean, maybe it's not like a topic you're familiar with, like using POSIX message keys from C++, or like, do you have a library in mind to use for this?
No, I cannot. No, I don't know enough from that. So I know usually the things I learn, which are, well, operating system specific, like concurrency, file system, I/O, etc. I learned the details when I describe them, why they are standardized the way they are in C++. Yeah, of course, I have a background with sockets and Unix and Linux, but the real tricky things, I'm not up to date, so I learn them usually then. So what is I don't know, why do we have problems with condition variables? It was funny how much I learned when we had the fix of std thread. So because we made a severe design mistake in std thread, C++11, we knew that, but nobody was willing to fix that. And then I proposed that we should go that path, and I made a proposal, and nobody wanted to do that. And it turned out that after a while, the community started not to use std thread anymore, at least some. And so they implemented something different. And there we found a couple of flaws. And so I don't know, I think it was Herb Sutter who came one day back to me and said, hey, what's up with your proposal to fix std thread? And I said, yeah, it was rejected. Nobody was interested. We had some opinions in the C++ Standard Committee. Let's no longer deal about low-level things like threads. Let's talk about high-level concurrency, descriptive ways of concurrency problems. But it turned out de facto we had a big issue. So that was the moment we came up again. And then, I don't know, 10 years later, now with C++20, we standardized stdj thread, which is the right way to implement std thread. But de facto, it's a bug fix. And we knew that we have that problem in 2011 already. And there were even votes saying in the Standard Committee, we have to fix that. The rest is politics. We have not big politics in the Standard Committee, but sometimes we have. So yeah, good.
There's some interesting things where you've been involved and which have been fixed by the Standard Committee later. There has been a lot of a debate ongoing with ABI, and I'd like to, get your opinion on ABI and how you see that.
I mean, whether it's ABI or API, backward compatibility, that's an issue. Or do you mean that? Or do you mean ABI break? Or do you mean the way ABI looks?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean that the ABI application binary interface, not API, ABI, okay, two different things, and that C++ should, have a way to handle that. And I saw 1 year ago at C++ now, a paper which is actually now 2 years old, trying to deal with that through interfaces, that you'd be able to have backward compatibility, but also go forward with adding an interface which changes or breaks the ABI for future standards or for chosen ABI points. And I like that, but I haven't heard much about that paper since then.
That's a killer pain point of C++. We couldn't fix std thread. We had to come up with stdj thread because it would have been an ABI break if we fix that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we had ABI breaks experience at some point. I think that the biggest ABI break experience we have is when GCC changed the ABI of std string. So they came up from a reference counting implementation to a short string optimized implementation. When you talk about the developers from GCC, they say, never, ever again.
Yeah.
Because de facto they maintain two string ABIs. They need a couple of compiler tricks so that they can be used both. And internally they have different symbol names so that it's de facto not an ABI break. It is de facto the new std string is a different type in GCC than the old std string. But you still run into significant problems. And never again, they say. And but it's always a question of people power. So how many people do you have to implement something? And the problem is then maintenance. Mm-hmm. So I understand that one of the biggest win of C and C++ is that code you compile now can be still compiled in 30 years, and you can count on that. And that's important for a couple of domains and industries. But I think we need something. We need something. But whether we invent something in C++, or the invention is a new language that is similar but not close, sooner or later we have to break things. And I don't see that we ever do that in C++ anymore. So I think that ship has sailed. There's a reason why we have Carbon now. And a couple of people working on that, coming from major companies starting with a G. And maybe not so much putting effort in Clang anymore. I don't know that. That's my impression. And yeah, de facto, we are fed up. Too many people are fed up now, but no way that we ever accept ABI breaks, because even if we accept that in the standard committee, the key people are the compiler implementers, and they will reject to do that because they have to do the support. People then call Microsoft or whoever and say, my program doesn't compile any. Well, it does compile, but we have a codam or we have different behavior now. And that's a big selling point. So we had some trials in the standard committee to come up with some models to deprecate things and replace them over 2 or 3 versions. But the people in the standard committee didn't have enough resources to work on that. Here you see the problem when something is community driven. Mm-hmm. for that, you need really, really power, resources, people, and time, and money. And we don't have that. The people who come there have their personal interest why they come to C++ and say, well, I want to have this library, I want to have this fix, I want to have this improvement. So we have a lot of different interests there. We have no chief architect. And in such a model, I think if we don't care for ABI breaks, then we would really get a total chaos. And so we have to do that. Otherwise, it's not maintainable. And that's it. We won't have ABI breaks in C++ anymore.
So we have about 1 minute in this room left, and then Hobido has this wonderful feature that it is that all of us will be kicked out here. So I guess we're going to continue this conversation in about a minute in the lounge.
So then I can see you all. That's good.
For the conversation, and then we'll have the big table with Nico, and there we'll be having a continuation in the C++ Hangout. If you want to join us there, join us in the lounge. And otherwise, thank you for listening and thank you for coming, Nico. And so last 45 minutes seconds are yours.
Thank you. Thank you all for interesting questions.